What's up everybody out there? Hope you're having an amazing day so far. I'm your host Phil, and today's video we're going to check out the ML Soundlab Reflex IRs. Let's roll that intro clip and then get straight to work. Welcome again everybody, appreciate you tuning in today's video. Now as you can take away from the title of this video, we're going to check out the newest release from ML Soundlab, which is their Reflex IR Series. I want to disclaim one thing straight out of the way, and that is that these impulse responses have been provided by Kai from ML Soundlabs to me for absolutely free. No money has exchanged hands, but still, you can take anything which I say with a grain of salt, because I do consider this at least partially sponsored. So first off, thanks to ML Soundlabs for giving me these IRs, but however, I want to still mention that you're going to get my honest thoughts and opinions on these impulse responses, and there are some caveats and some things which I think which are not absolutely perfect about these impulse responses, which we're going to talk about in a moment. But first, let's talk about what the Reflex IR series actually are and what they're made for, or what kind of market they're tailored towards. Now, I've watched the marketing strategy of ML Soundlabs unfold today, and there are a few buzzwords which are being thrown out there. You know, like, first off, this has a fancy new name. These are the Reflex IR series. So that in itself is already kind of a claim that this is something new, this is something exciting, and there's a new technology behind it. So let's find out together if that's really the case, and you might be the judge at the end if there's actually some merit to these claims. From a methodology point of view, there certainly are. So let's talk through that first. Now, one thing which makes these cabinets specifically special and stand out from the pack is that they are tailored specifically towards FRFR speakers. Now, let me get that right. That means, or that stands for, full range flat response speakers. And the concept behind FRFR speakers is basically that they are as linear as they possibly can be made. And what that brings, or what kind of advantage that brings to the table, is that you would not run specifically only your amplifier through them. That would sound really scratchy and horrible. This effect when you have an amp simulation turned on and then no impulse response, that's kind of the effect which you would get out of these FRFR speakers if you would just slam them in. What you want to do is you want to have some sort of cabinet emulation behind the amplifier, whether that being your modeling unit or a tube amplifier with an attenuator or a load box behind that, and then running into a cabinet emulation, and you run that into the FRFR speaker. What that allows for is that you have this big mic'd sound at a stage volume level for monitoring purposes when you are playing. So you can basically use, for example, your Line 6 Helix floorboard and some sort of power amp, and still leave the cabinet emulation on your floorboard unit. That would allow that one output can go to the front of house, so you get good sound over there, and one output would go to the FRFR speaker, so that way you're getting your nice lush tone out of your monitoring speaker on stage. You know, so you don't have to use in-ears or something like that. That's kind of the idea, or one of the potential use cases of FRFR speakers, and these impulse responses are kind of tailored towards this particular use case scenario. Now that we have spoken about the FRFR situation, let's talk about what they actually have done differently in shooting these impulse responses that make them specifically geared towards this usage, and what other use cases can we kind of use these impulse responses for. Now, one of the main goals in releasing the Reflex IR series was to smoothen out the frequency response of these impulse responses compared to regular impulse responses. What does that mean? If you look at the frequency response of a regular IR, you can see a lot of very, like narrow dips and peaks which are inherently baked into the IR. What that means is, while it does determine the characteristic to an extent of that particular IR, this is super obnoxious sometimes in a mix where it would otherwise sound good, but those peaks and those dips are absolutely ruining it because you're getting strange phase cancellation issues. And they're very hard to tackle with some post-processing because you have to know exactly what you are doing, where you want to do it, and that brings other issues to it. So it can be a little bit of a hassle to kind of deal with that stuff. And using the Reflex IR series, you're kind of getting a smoother frequency response, but still having all of the prominent characteristics of that specific, speaker mic situation going on. And that way you can eventually also even sometimes higher the volume in your mix without becoming super obnoxious. And that's super useful when mixing, and kind of I wouldn't say a game changer or a lifesaver, but it certainly does the job a little bit easier. And, if you're like me, then you take everything, which gives you a little bit less of a hard time. What ML Soundlab has done in order to achieve this, actually, because Mikko is absolutely opposed to using any sort of equalization behind the impulse response artificially. He always wants to make raw captures of a speaker mic combination, is that he reached out to Zillacabs, which is an incredibly knowledgeable and absolutely, admired guitar cabinet builder. He reached out to Paul from Zillacabs, and together they designed and built a cabinet which kind of tackles exactly these problem areas where you don't have these cancellations out there, allowing for that smoother frequency response, which I was previously talking about. All right, I've been now talking way too long about the methodology and the background of the impulse response pack. Let's dive slowly into getting some actual sound demos. But before we do that, we first got to talk about the signal chain. Then we're going to check out how the impulse response is kind of structured, what you get for your money, and then we're going to get into some tones. Now, the signal chain, it all starts with this beautiful Solar 2.6A over here, which has the Duncan Solar pickups. Wonderful guitar, not so wonderful pickups, but they do the job. So we're gonna work with what we have over here. That goes into my Djent ID44 MK1, and that is set with gain completely to 0 in the high Z input. So that means I got plus 10 dBu of headroom, and that then goes into Reaper over here, into this signal chain. Ignore these two plugins over here. It all starts with the NAM boost. This is a Fortune Tempest capture which I made, which is soon going to be available when I get my NAM player and can review that one. Then we got the Tap Iratus, which I found on Tone Hunt. That's an 100 watt metal EL34 amplifier. Sounds incredibly good. And then we got the Mikko IRs over here, the Mikko IR pack over here. I'm gonna go now into this, let's say, overview over here. So we got these 3 packs over here. Currently in the Reflex IR series, there are only 3 packs, but there are more to be released from what I understood. We got the Djent V30, the Green 90, and the Mick 77. Now you can already get some clues out of the naming. The Djent V30 is, from what I know, a V30, which is taken out of a Mesa Boogie oversized cabinet, which has actually been used on the Periphery 3 album, if I understood that correctly. So that exact V30, which is really cool, has some mojo to it. The Green 90 is a greenback from 1990, which, according to Mikko, is the best one he ever came across. And the Mick 77 is, you might have guessed it already, based off the Eminence DV77 Mick Thompson signature speakers, which are very sought after. They're kind of being heralded as the replacement of the V30. I don't believe that, to be honest. I do not gel that well with that speaker, but that's a different story. We're still going to check out all 3 of them. If you go into the IR packs, you always have fiver pairs. So you always have fiver pairs. What a contradicting statement. You always have groups of 5 IRs. So you have, for example, Royer R121, A, B, C, D, and E over here. And then the next microphone, A, B, C, D, E, and so on and so forth. You also have 5 blends. However, NAD-IR is making the sorting a little bit strange. When you look at the actual impulse response, then you can see over here that you got these 5 pieces over here, which are sticking together, which is cool. So, however, you always have like namings behind them, like perfect, smooth, aggressive, and so on and so forth. In total, you get 45 different impulse responses, and you get that in other formats as well. So that's already covered, which is really cool. Yeah, absolutely top notch from a quality perspective, from an organizational standpoint. Mikko definitely knows his stuff on this stuff. He is super experienced. So that's a breeze to kind of navigate towards this. All right, I think we got everything out of the way so that we can get into some tones. I'm gonna start with the first one, which I'm coming across over here. This is the Reflex IR Series Djent V30 Blend 1. Perfect. This is what it sounds like. All right, now, of course, I unfortunately cannot go through all of the impulse response packs. I already tried a little bit around. I just want to show you kind of my highlights where you can really kind of look through the diversity of these impulse response packs. So in the Djent V30, I really like the 57 captures. Mind you that A is always the dullest or the darkest sounding and E is always the brightest. Let's walk through all of these 5 SM57 captures. Okay, now, first off, the A. Oh, you're right. So you could hear for yourself that transition from dark to bright. I like the C on the SM57 quite a lot. And what I really like is the Sennheiser E906B that has a nice low end. First, let's listen to the SM57C. Sorry. Okay, yeah, that sounds really good. However, not that sound in itself sounds good, but if you blend that now together with the SM57D, for example. Let's go over here. Let's make a half-half blend. So nice blend. Which is also cool is that you are capable of doing the blends because these impulse responses have been shot in a way that they're not kind of phase cancellating all the way through when doing these kind of blends. Really good foresight of Mikko to do so. Okay, let's move to the next impulse response before we're blowing this video up way longer than it has to be. I pushed the balance completely tilted towards the green 90. So we're just gonna go with the classic. Let's go with that first. Wow, that sounds really good, especially for that classic rock stuff. Yeah, it has that greenback character to it. Let's go for maybe the bite blend. Really cool sounding, especially for that classic rock stuff over there. Yeah, I mean, that's not classic rock, that's more hair metal style, but you get the idea. Let me tune quickly up. Yeah, that's fine. Okay, I think what the most people are here for are the actual Mick 77 impulse responses, because of course this is like super sought after and very interesting for a lot of people out there. So let's check it out. Here the Mick 77 byte. Okay, let's switch more into metal territory. Let me down tune. All right, yeah, let me go to an SM57 capture, maybe the E on the DV77. All right, yeah, that sounds pretty good, but I personally like the Djent 30 the most over here, so I'm gonna go back to a blend which I really enjoyed. Let's go with the SM57C, and then a little bit more on the side of the 57C. Let's take a little bit low pass. Let's adjust the EQ over here. Let's do it like this. I think this should sound good. Let's try it out. Now, while the tones already sound pretty good, you can already hear that, that smoothed out frequency range. It's a little bit, I wouldn't say lifeless. That's a mean word and very demeaning, but it lacks a little bit of that excitement. Let me compare here my own impulse responses. And then let's go to the Miko plugin, which I set with the Djent V30. So we're having something quite similar and comparable. Let me mark this. By this shortcut, I can toggle now between the Miko Reflex IRs and the Miko 2 plugin. Okay, we're starting with the Miko 2 plugin and then switching. They're way more smoothed out, as you can hear. So I'm gonna put the guitar away over here because that's already kind of the test through the different impulse responses in a playthrough mix, or not a playthrough mix, in a playthrough situation. And we're gonna move away from the playthrough to the mixing situation because I already prepared something over here. I have here a demo recording of my band Tempest. Yeah, nothing special, just a song which we kind of recorded, or which I recorded here at home for demo purposes. And first off, I would just want to show you the guitars alone. And over here at these markers, we're having always switches in regards of the plugins which are being used. At this station, we got the Reflex IRs being engaged. Over here, we're going to have a shift from the Reflex IRs to my own IRs. And then over here, we're having a shift from my own IRs to the Miko 2 plugin. And then again, from the Miko 2 plugin to the Reflex IR at over here. Okay. So let's move over here. Guitars only. And let's roll. All right, as I already can hear, my own impulse responses are very pokey. They have exactly this kind of wild phase cancellation going on. The Miko plugin is way more balanced, and the Reflex IR is then a little bit more even and more smoother in that regard. But it's very similar to the Miko plugin. So it's kind of cool that you have the Reflex IR being kind of a substitute to the Miko in that regard, because they're using quite similar stuff. Yeah, let's listen to that in a full mix context over here. Again, starting from the Reflex IR, just walking through. All right, now in that regard here, in this comparison, the Reflex IR was super close to the Miko plugin, which is cool because we are comparing €20 IR packs against an $250 or what, I'm not sure what Miko costs right now, but kind of in that ballpark, €200, €250, a costly plugin. And if you only want that specific impulse response or that specific speaker, and you know that you like it, then, you know, why shell out $200 if you can have a very similar tone for $20 only? So that's really cool. It really shows that smooth frequency response compared to that pokiness. With traditional IRs, I would have to take down the guitars a little bit more. On my own impulse responses, I would have to, you know, do a little bit more EQing. That's not necessary all with the Reflex plugin, with the Reflex IRs. You can just kind of smack them on in the mix and kind of leave them there. That's really cool about them. Let me check what we actually have in regards of post-processing. Apart from a small high pass and a low pass, we don't have anything going on over here. While on my own IRs, I have the low pass way more aggressive than on the Miko IRs, but it still is way more pokey. So that's really interesting that it has this pokiness to it. And the Miko is also very bare bones set up. So that's really cool that, yeah, that it sounds the way that it sounds. Let's listen to that again. I like that smoothed out, you know, that easy to go sound which we're getting. All right, and I could now go ahead and easily add maybe an dB or a half an dB in volume on the guitar without being kind of overpowering. Right. And you're already hearing, as soon as it goes over to my own IRs, they're kind of overpowering with those pokey frequencies coming out. Yeah, so this is kind of the main benefit on these Reflex IRs. And with that out of the way, that we showcase this now, let's go to the conclusion and wrap this video up. All right, super late, gotta wrap this up. What's my personal conclusion? What's my personal opinion on this? At first, I must say, I was kind of a little bit bummed out because I did not really vibe with the impulse response pack, but I'm now giving it a second chance right now. So this playthrough section, which you just heard, I just re-recorded it actually, and now I'm enjoying it way more than I did on the first time because I'm getting used to it slowly. And I think that's an important learning. You gotta make sure that your expectation is set that you're gonna use this more in a mixing context, or at least be prepared that it's gonna sound different than your regular impulse responses. It's gonna be a little bit more smoother. It's gonna be a little less vibrant because it's not as pokey as it is, but it's not also gonna be not that annoying when you're doing mix stuff with that and maybe playing to music or something. So it's kind of blending better into it. And I think that's a huge benefit, and actually, yeah, really smart that they're bringing out this stuff, especially tailoring it towards the FRFR market, because that's a steadily rising market. While the tube amps are kind of slowly going away from the stages from what I'm seeing, and modelers are kind of taking over, especially in the small band market from what I'm seeing. Yeah, my personal opinion on these impulse response packs are that they are absolutely fantastically shot from a technical point of view. Nothing to complain about. Also very consistent throughout the entire range. I really like that a lot, and I really appreciate that a lot if there's not that much fluctuation going on. Yeah, I can wholeheartedly recommend them, especially them being only $20 compared to Miko 2, which is $200 or $250, somewhere around that ballpark. Definitely worth the money which you are investing. And it is basically the cost of a regular IR pack. If you want the full package and you want everything included, maybe Miko 2 is the better solution out there, but these are absolutely worth their money. I can wholeheartedly recommend it. I'm gonna link down below to the product page for the Reflex IR series. I'm gonna link to Miko's video which he made about this, and I'm gonna also link to a few other stuff like my tone hunt profile and stuff like that, so that you can download some extra stuff. Yeah, with that out of the way, first off, thank you to ML Soundlab and especially Kai for sending out these impulse responses. I absolutely appreciate that, especially being a small content creator and being seen that way, so that ML Soundlab is kind of reaching out to me and asking, hey, you want to demo these stuff? I super appreciate that. It really makes me happy. And to you guys out there, everybody watching, thank you so much for watching and hanging out with me on these videos. I absolutely appreciate it. If you like what you see, then subscribe please for more, comment your thoughts on these impulse response packs. Always eager to hear from you and to start a small discussion and a small conversation. I love nerding out about this stuff, and appreciate everybody taking their precious lifetime spending a little bit with my videos. Thank you so much, everybody, and yeah, take care and see you in the next video. Until then, keep it metal.